I grew up in a single parent household. And when I was growing up, there were things that my mom did, not all at once, but at various different times during my childhood in order to essentially put food on the table. There were times when she would plant, say, callaloo, in the yard, and she would send us out on Sunday mornings. You go walk to the neighbor's yard, and you ask them if they want callaloo to buy, and you would sell your bundle of callaloos, right? Sometimes people would come to the yard, and they would buy from us, right? She would plant tomato, cucumber, stuff like that, and we would either walk and sell, or people know that, okay, well, you're growing this stuff, and they'll come to where you are and buy from you. There were times when we would go out into the town, right? And you carry a little basket with your stuff in there, and you sell it in the car park or somewhere by the roadside. There were times when she would go to the market. I believe she used to sell at Clarkstown Market. And so we would either our own provisions, right, or you buy from a farmer, put out your load, you go on the market truck, you head to market Friday night, or, well, in the morning, 4 o'clock, right? You go market, you sell Saturday, and you come back. Sometimes she would go, and when I was small, I recall she would spend like 2 days at the market. So we would be by ourselves, right? And she would spend 2 days at the market, and then she come back Sunday evening. My brothers, some of them are farmers, you capture a piece of land, you plant your yam and your whatever your grown provisions, and you sell it to people who go to the market and sell the produce. So you are the primary supplier. Somebody buys the produce from you, and then they take it to the market and sell. Now, under the Agricultural Produce Act, all of these activities were illegal. All of these activities were illegal. So the act came into force before Jamaica even gained independence. This is coming from the colonizers, right? And so the Agricultural Produce Act came into force in 1926. So this is not something that is new. This is not something that the JLP government cooked up and came up with. So just so that we're clear, because when I'm giving my information and I do my research, I try to be as factual as possible. But because I understand how the game works and how the propaganda works, I also have to sift through the noise when I am making my pronouncements on these matters. So in 2023, right, the Jamaica Labour Party's government amended the Agricultural Produce Act, right, and then begin to, of course, it made some amendments, repeal some provisions, replace them with some other provisions, but the takeaway is that they are now beginning to enforce the act rigorously. And I suppose the question is why. And I'm going back to the video where Floyd Green was responding to a voice note. Disingenuously, I might add, because this is how people operate in these spaces. They tend to narrowly focus on the one little thing that you get incorrect, but your broader point that is very valid, they ignore it because they say, oh, this one little thing that you got wrong is incorrect, and I make that the focus. This is what you would call a strawman argument, if you will. Now, Floyd Green said that Jamaicans do not need permission from RADA to grow food in their backyard for personal use. And that narrow point, Mr. Green is indeed correct. If you plant a little, callaloo, tomato, yam, or other provisions at home for yourself and for your family, the law does not require you to obtain a dealer's license. But that does not answer the questions that is being raised by Jamaicans. It answers the easier parts of the controversy while leaving the serious part unexamined. Our concern is what happens when that food, those provisions, leave your backyard and is being transported elsewhere. What happens? Well, like in the case of my mother, who planted a little callaloo and a little tomato and was going around in the community, we're going around in the community and selling our little bundle of callaloo and our little bags of tomato just so that we can put food on the table. What happens then? What happens when you have a little 15-year-old child and you send them out to the roadside with a little bundle of callaloo or the little bags of tomatoes or the whatever to sell to passers-by and you don't have a dealer's license? What happens to the little man who say, all right, then boy, I have a little old Pragada, and you load up your little thing them in your van back and you drive round and sell it because you can't do no better because you have one wife and 5 people with a gas school for feed and you don't have a dealer's license, because this is what obtained. This is the reality of the ordinary Jamaicans. And it would be one thing if our quality of life had significantly improved. You know, everybody in Jamaica, or majority of people in Jamaica, were living at such a high standard that the government can now say, okay, this kind of informal commercial activity, we can begin to be a little bit more serious in regulating, because everybody live large. Everybody live big. We are no longer relying primarily on remittances. Right? Jamaicans living in Jamaica are no longer subsisting and the money that they're getting from their friends and relatives abroad. Everybody in Jamaica is doing well. So we can afford. Because who is this benefiting? Fly Green, I want to ask you, who is this benefiting? And don't tell me anything about no larceny or thievery or whatever the case may be. Because you people don't care about the ordinary Jamaicans. This law is coming from the colonizers. This law has been there long before. I don't think anybody alive in Jamaica right now was alive at the time when this law came into force. And it was never enforced before. But I'll tell you what, this is in line with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and the Vision 2030 agenda. That is the truth. Because who is benefiting? Any laws on the books that you have in your country must substantially benefit the majority of the people that are living in that country. I think I could be incorrect, so don't quote me on this, but I believe there was one survey that says 2 million Jamaicans are living below the poverty line. And we have less than 3 million people in the country. We always run it up to 3 million, but it's less than 3 million. 2 million Jamaicans living below the poverty line. And we know that scamming is how most Jamaicans are getting by. Let's just keep it about 1,000. Scamming is how most Jamaicans are getting by. And remittances from friends and family who are sending back money to the Jamaicans that are living here. It's not because the country is doing well. It's not because the government has made the lives of Jamaicans significantly better. It is not. So who is this law supposed to be benefiting, Mr. Green? What happens when somebody, because the language is so vague, you know, personal use, there's no quantification of what personal use is. There's no quantification of what commercial use is. So it largely depends on the discretion of the officer who is stopping somebody going about their business with provisions that they don't have a certificate for. You know, that what happens in Jamaica is that, first of all, it says, of course, the law says that if you plant stuff on the premises that you're occupying and you're selling it from the premises, then you are exempt. But let us just keep it 1,050. People, this is not generally what happens. When I was growing up, where we plant Willico yam, it wasn't on the premises that we were occupying. You capture piece of land and you plant the yam pani, and you plant the dasheen and the banana, and because you don't have a big enough space in your backyard to plant anything. Let's just be honest. Most people that plant stuff for personal use or otherwise, and we don't generally plant it just for personal use. You plant it and you plant enough to give to your friend and kumbolo, and sometimes you sell, because guess what? Even when you plant it for personal use and it's kind of like, boy, you know, have no money, so you say, uno go sell somebody callaloo them, and you get up Sunday morning and you cut the callaloo and you walk around, you do a 10 bungle and you walk around and I beg people to buy it. And sometimes then they sorry for you and buy it just so you can go buy 1/4 stick of butter, or you know, a quarter stick. I don't remember how we did sell them sell the high, but you look back and you get the little quarter in the back. Right, and you buy 1 little half pound of chicken back and you buy quarter bread, and that is how we used to live. But the food was not necessarily grown on the premises that you lived on. You capture a piece of land or you plant it someplace else. That is what normally obtains. And even when you're growing it for personal use, sometimes you have to sell it because you want a piece of meat. You want 1 little quarter stick of butter. Because this is what happens in the country areas, Mr. Green. I don't know what kind of gold spoon or silver spoon you grew up in for your pussycat Jacana. But the majority of us don't grow up like that. We go up where you go buy, you go a shop and you have a stick of butter and then cut in a quarter, you have the little quarter you can't afford. You go and then bag out the aisle. I don't remember how, you get the little poly bag and you then throw the little aisle in there. Because that is what you can afford. Quarter pound of sugar, you know, bag out in a paper bag. And more than that, at trust you have to trust because you know hobby. So you go there and you know, the shop people have book with your name right down, so you take this and you take that area, how much you want. Sometimes you still have to go back but trust again even though you don't pay what you owe. That is how we live, and that is how some Jamaicans are living right now. What the fuck is wrong with this government? What is wrong with you people? Like, everything want to come up with is to oppress the people, who, because this not affect the people who can afford to. It's not affecting them because the money not plan nothing. They're going to the supermarket, they're going to go buy for them stuff, you know. Supermarket, most of these people go buy for them yam and stuff, they're not going to the market. Let's just keep it about 50. So it is not affecting the people, it's the little people who this is how they get by. Una come up with this law now, una set out the police and go antagonize blood clot people. And we know this happens because there has been several cases that where people were traveling with stuff and the police find them, and when they go to the court is like, well, even though they got the receipt after the fact, the judge decides, well, you never have the receipt at the time when the officer stopped you, so you are still guilty of the offense. Because remember, when people go because basically what they're saying to you now, if you go market, go buy a certain portion of food, the Igla have to give you one receipt. So if police stop you on the way because you went by, if your name, because I have my landlady here, and when she's going anywhere, I don't have any car, so I'm like, okay, can you buy this, buy that for me? So of course, if you one person is going to the market and people might say, all right, you're going to market, buy this, buy, and that's how it works. Especially if there's one person with a vehicle in a particular, because that is how it works when you're poor, Mr. Bumblehole. Poor people, this is how we operate. Right, and once somebody go and they go work, then van back we produce he, she, and the old lady. They don't get no receipt for it because at the end of the day, like, who cares? Police stop you. Them determines it because there's nothing in the law that it quantifies what commercial use is or what personal use is. So it is now left up to the discretion of the officer who is stopping you. And the fine is $3 million or 3 years in prison. Up to, I suppose. And it's not even so whether or not because once the officer gives fines you, if you go waste time go court. And it is now left because this is it. And how are you going to acquit yourself in court when you don't understand them court rules? So you have to go apply a lawyer. And this is going to put undue pressure on the ordinary Jamaicans who are going about their ordinary business because besides uno enforce this a pussy clout lawyer. We don't have nothing to do with anything other than the Agenda 2030 what uno decides that uno fall under because fly come hell or high water. We going to fall under the New World Order agenda because JLP is going to usher us into it. And that is the reality of what is happening. Because everything under this act, this is what has been happening. The act is not new. I am aware of it. But what the act it claims to be illegal is what the poor people might do from the devil was a boy. You are criminalizing people taking care of themselves, trying to eke out a living. And these are not people who are rich. These are people who can barely survive. These are people who are living below the poverty line. And these are the people that you're trying to criminalize. It is not new. Where Sunday morning and Saturday morning, you have a van drive up and everybody glad come in the community and them have yam and banana and cocoa and dasheen and pumpkin and callaloo and tomato and onion and whatever, and you van back and you buy. And that's how most of these people send them picnic at school and be able to feel. Because let's face it, most people who are living, especially in the country, when I was growing up, we never pay rent because we don't have the money to pay for. Right? You live in a one little piece of touch house and I hit that, you don't have no light, you got spring go catch water. Right? And you live off of the land. You're going to come and go see if you can find wild rent I am. Right? And so on and so forth. And how we used to make money is like, you pick pimenta for people when a pimenta season and then you bag it out and them sell it. And the pimenta bush, you sell it to pimenta chuck when pimenta chuck a pass on. Like, this is how we live. This is how you make a little money. We go up at Jenkins in a Christiana, go pick coffee and banana. When a banana, whatever, you pick banana and whatever the case. That's how we lived. And you go to the feed store, you go to the green store, go buy your little cucumber and tomato and callaloo seed. And you plant it where you can plant it because then bear fast. And you get a motor road. That's how we lived. And you are criminalizing that. It was criminalized by the colonizers. And we decide to say, no, 100 years later, we decide we're going to enforce it. The Jamaica Labour Party. When 2 million people are living below the poverty line. You have not improved the lives of the Jamaican people. I don't know and boast about this unemployment fuckery rate. We want to cook up with statin. If you come lie to the Jamaican people, unemployment rate is at 3%. When we classify all sort of fuckery as unemployment and people are still suffering. If Jamaicans living abroad stop sending money come to Jamaica, dog, nyam with super. Because that is what is keeping the country afloat. Remittances. That is how most of us are living. If I know we friend and family are foreign, we dead for hungry. And the focus of this government is to criminalize people who are trying to make a living. Make it make sense. This is what obtains. I am sure most people in the country can attest to say this is what happened. You plan a little thing and you walk around and you sell it. And if you have a little old product that you fling in your van back and you drive around and sell to people, you tap a yard, me a yam and banana. That's how it works. And that's how it has been from before I was born until now. And the Jamaica Labour Party decides, say, they want to come in now and criminalize the whole of that. Because when you look, there was a survey by, I think, the World Bank or whatever. And it was on Jamaica. And you know what they praise Jamaica for? Our informal economy. Because although we are classified as a third world country or whatnot, the informal economy, the informal exchanges that happen in our day-to-day lives. That is how we survive. And this goddamn Jamaica Labour Party government has decided to come in and criminalize that. And that is what we're taking issue with Floyd Green. So you can come on the internet as much as you want and combat misinformation as much as you know. Uno is a set of bomb hole. But I mark what me tell you, uno go on. So till
You go on and go on and go on so till. Because pressure bus 5.